Childhood Trauma and Love Addiction, Exploring the Mediation of Unbalanced Family Functioning. And this is by the authors Alessio Gori, Eleonora Topino, Sarah Russo, and Mark D. Griffiths, published in 2024 in the scientific journal Psychological Trauma, Theory, Research, and Practice and Policy. And it's nice, I think, to see a little bit of research on love addiction, because in the treatment field of problematic sexual behavior, we hear the term a lot. We don't necessarily have a lot of research behind it to come up with some great evidence-based practices to work with it. So what is love addiction? And again, this comes from the study. It was defined here based on previous research as a maladaptive, pervasive, and excessive interest towards romantic partners, resulting in a lack of control, as well as a reduction in social, professional, and leisure activities. And how do we know when, attraction or interest or, a crush moves into love addiction? This is based on Raynaud et al., 2010. It is the moment of transition from healthy love to pathological love is when desire becomes need, suffering overtakes pleasure, and the love-related behaviors continue despite negative consequences. I think I've been doing this for a very long time and I've never actually heard this definition, which I really, really like. So this pilot study really kind of wanted to look at the role of childhood trauma on love addiction. I think we inherently think this exists, but again, when we don't have a lot of research, we don't know for sure. And again, just a little interesting blurb from the study. Why look at childhood trauma and love addiction? We know that trauma survivors suffer from sensitivity to rejection, abandonment issues. They can tend to have unstable relationships, difficulty with trust issues, and this can lead to the establishment of real addictions. So the current study, their goal was to examine variables that may contribute to love addiction, focusing on, again, that role of childhood trauma, but also family functioning. Like, what kind of family do we have? Do we have a disengaged, rigid family? Do we have a really connected, emotionally secure family? And those are the things we're looking at. So who's in it? The subjects were 910 individuals. They had to be in a romantic relationship. Just some study demographics. 76.6% were female in this study. Their average age was 30. They had to be at least 18 years of age to participate, and they had to be in a relationship at the time of the data collection. They were given some measures. It's science. We have to give them some measures so that we can study. They were given the Love Addiction Inventory short form, the Family Adaptability and Cohesion Evaluation Scales 4, also known as the FACES 4, and the Childhood Trauma Questionnaire short form. And again, these are things to look at, both obviously the love addiction as well as what childhood traumas and neglects the person experienced. So what did the study find? And again, this is just a little review. It's some blips. They found that there were no significant differences in the levels of love addiction based on gender. So the male and the female participants had similar scores. They found that love addiction was significantly positively correlated with disengaged, enmeshed, rigid, and chaotic family functioning patterns. So children, or adults in this case that were in the study, but who had childhood family lives that had these characteristics, were more likely to score positively on the love addiction measures. They also found that love addiction was significantly positively associated with the childhood trauma subdimensions of emotional abuse and physical abuse. What else did we find? When they looked specifically at the effects of physical and emotional abuse, they found that it really was emotional abuse that was significantly positively correlated with that disengaged, enmeshed, rigid, and chaotic family functioning. So that emotional abuse comes from that disorganized family. An interesting finding, I think maybe we make assumptions about this in the field, which is why we need the research, was that sexual abuse, emotional neglects, and physical neglect were not significantly associated with love addiction. And sometimes I think we assume that sexual abuse or emotional neglect would be associated with love addiction. And so that's just a little blip. This was a pilot study. Again, a pilot study is just kind of like a small beginning investigation of things, hopefully to help us out and move us towards research to follow. And here is the reference, again, from the Scientific Journal of Psychological Trauma, Theory, Research, Practice, and Policy.